Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
So now I'm with Carl Labove, and you do, first let's talk about your show.
Okay.
You are here in Vegas every Friday, Saturday night,
Fridays, midnight, yeah.
Oh, man.
I wanted to do a show where I actually had to take a nap before I did it.
And it's the dirty show, right?
Yeah, well, it's advertised as the dirty, but what I wanted it to be is free comedically. The stuff that you couldn't do at an 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
I wanted it to be that way. That way when I have guests on, like Stephen Pearl's my guest tonight, I want them to be loose.
Yeah.
So there's no rules to it. So just by that moniker, The Dirty Show, it can mean anything to you.
Right.
Just artistically, let it go.
Let your freak flag fly.
That's right.
And Carl, you were one of the original outlaws of comedy, right?
Right.
And that was with Sam. And you guys kind of made the Comedy Store. I mean, like when I was started there, I was waitress in San Diego, and you guys were really, and Dice was one too, right?
Yeah. I think what it was is we were there just before comedy blew up. So because we were those guys ringing the bell every night, late at night, and the rock stars were coming in to hang out before they were rock stars, it was the early 80s, so they were all, getting their music together, and we were getting our comedy together. So I think it all hit like at 84, 85. That's when it kind of blew up. So rock and roll and comedy was the thing to be seen then. I mean, to go do a gig and have 5,000 people show up.
Wow.
It was
and comics and musicians very like-minded, very click very well.
And I think that's like your subject matter and the stuff that you do, paranormals. I think that all blends into music and freedom inside a person who gets to that place where they're so free they can say their thoughts and put it into a song or to put it into a joke, but it's really pain that you've already lived, and you flipped it and turned it into something that makes everyone laugh, and that's why they agree with you, because they've been through it themselves.
And I always think that comedians, they have to, we're saying or doing what others don't have you know what I mean? They can't say it. Like, I always forget, too, when I do this paranormal podcast, I get emails from people that are like, I couldn't say that I thought there was ghosts, but that's our job, is just to be the person that says, Yeah,
and I think maybe yourself, too, I don't know, but since childhood, you've noticed things and seen things, So I've had, I was a sickly child, so I had hospital stays by myself, where my dad came to leave me in the hospital when I was 5 for the first time by myself away from the family. Oh. And he explained to me who God was in his way. So he said, how you wait for me to come home and you're so excited to be around me because you know that I love you more than anything in the world. And that's why you love me back, because I give you unconditional love. Well, God is a life force, just like that. So tonight, you're not by yourself. There's someone next to you, and there's people that love you that are next to you because they know you're afraid, and they'll be there for you. So you're not by yourself.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So feel free to talk. Feel free to not be shy in the hospital and scared. You have imaginary friends. They're there.
Wow.
And the next day I woke up, and I did not have I had a murmur and a hole in my heart. And I was going to have open heart surgery. Woke up the next morning, and I had all this, and I don't remember this. I remember playing, and the doctors did another look at my heart, and it was gone. The hole was gone.
Wow.
So my dad being in church, I had to go into the next 5 years and talk about how God healed me, but I knew it wasn't the God they were talking about. It was the life force. It was life.
Right.
It was that flip. And I think there's dimensions, and I think, I've learned these things in life where you see things. We had a ghost in my house when I was in high school. I didn't know about it till years later, but I thought I saw something walking down the hall one night. But 10 years later, I'm talking to my mom. She said, we had a ghost at that old house. And I go, really? And she goes, yeah, I saw your dad walk down the hall, I thought, one night and go to your bathroom instead of ours. And he was in there a long time, so I went down there and I tapped on the door, and I go, honey? And I heard nothing. And it scared me, and I opened the door, and there was nobody in there.
Wow.
She goes, and I saw a man walk down the hall. And my dad had seen it, and it was in our home. And it was something
and nobody was freaked out.
And nobody was freaked out.
Was your dad a preacher?
He was a little bit, but my father came out of the closet when I was 19. So no one knew.
Okay.
And so my dad went to church to try to find faith and all that. But the church teaches you're going to hell.
Oh, right, yeah.
So when he really had to stand up for who he was as a person, he had to let that stuff go.
Right, right. And because I know you said that he was saying God healed you, but that's
why he explained it in a very cool way, which is not a religious way of God, but the life force out there that we all find our confidence in, or those doors that are open for us when we think things are closed to us. And a lot of it is just getting over your own personal fear and going for whatever it is that you really feel you need to do, which is maybe destiny that's sitting inside your spirit. That's why you're here. Those kind of things,
And your dad, it's really a testament of how brave he was, because at that time...
he's my hero.
Yeah.
Because he did do it. And yes, it caused the family to fall apart for a little bit because I was young. I have a brother and sister. We thought it ruined the family and everything else. And then as you grow older and reform a new relationship with a man who's totally free finally and is not closeted and all those things that he was,
authentic self.
It made me proud of him because I saw someone grow, and I had him for another 10 years, and it was the best. I took him on vacations, and he saw a piece of success.
Wow.
So where do you want to travel this year? And we'd go and have those experiences. But he was in the Air Force. So excuse me. So as a 6 or 7 year old, my brother and I saw something in the backyard once at our base housing that we had, and we thought it was a UFO.
Oh, and what state were you guys in?
This was in Texas. This was in Fort Worth. And we thought it was a UFO. And we told my dad the next day that we thought something was hovering in the backyard. And it's just a one-time memory of that kind of situation. And my dad goes, well, I think anything's possible. And it was just a cool way for us kids to not be afraid of it and
and not be shamed.
Exactly.
And not be like, you can't say they're wrong.
And it wasn't something we went around telling anybody. It was just a one-night kind of thing that was different for us. But when I was 14, we moved to Vandenberg Air Force Base from Japan. And we were on the base a little bit. So my neighbor I made friends with, he taught me how to ride motorcycles. And he had a son that was about 2 years younger than me. They went hunting on the weekend during good weather. They showed up. They jumped out of the car, and they were looking. His dad, the gentleman, was a pilot. And he's still there. And then the little boy, I see it, Dad. And they're just staring at it. And I came running out of my house because I was looking at my window when I saw them do that. And what are you guys looking at? And they go, there's a UFO. And sure enough, way off in the distance was a yellow light that came and hovered over Vandenberg Air Force Base, but then would shoot off towards Santa Maria and then come back. And it was like in the blink of an eye, this thing was gone and came back. And it wasn't a light in the sky. It hovered, it shot down, disappeared, popped back up in a different location. And that sparked an interest that still goes on to this day.
Yeah, and it's funny because, again, there's that it's almost like that's technology we didn't have at that time, we're pretty sure.
Right.
And it's over the Air Force Base, which is, I don't know if we'll ever know. Are they communicating with them? Are they watching them?
What I appreciate out of it, though, is it got me into the mindset of
anything.
I love that idea. Yeah. So for a long time, I got into this looking for UFOs on the internet, stuff like that. I love videos and things like that. Then I found Linda Moulton Howe.
Oh, yes, she's brilliant.
And I think she's the, what do you call it? I told somebody the other day she reminds me of Lois Lane. She's the Lois Lane because she doesn't waste your time. She gets to the point and she studied it so deeply that she's interesting. Mm-hmm. So I've been here a year in Vegas. For the last 6 months, every single night, I find her videos, and that's what I end up going to sleep on.
Oh, that's great. She was Miss Idaho or something when she was younger.
I could see
really
that. She's a stunning woman. Yeah, she's a beautiful lady.
Yeah. Oh, the UFO stuff, I might have to come back and find you again because the UFO stuff, I just started getting into it and really meeting a lot of abductees and stuff like that. And it's fascinating.
Yes.
And I know one person talked about a sighting here in Vegas that happened on the Strip. Someone saw on the Strip, which I have a theory because we're all looking at our phones. That we're missing
absolutely.
What's going on. And all these people started to cry. Like, you know how
they say,
yep, you know how they say the government knows, but they're not telling us? Mm-hmm. It's kind of a theory of the world would fall apart. United States would fall apart if they'd lose their religion, people started to cry right there on the Strip because they saw a spaceship.
Right.
And it's like, That's
I don't believe that we'd fall apart.
I hope not.
Now I'll tell you why. Because I thought about this because I've heard it said on so many of the things I watch too, and because that's the excuse that the government. I think it started when War of the Worlds came out.
Oh, and people freaked out.
And because they didn't advertise it as a play, they made it come across as a real situation, and it stunned the nation, and people were frightened that we were being attacked by killing aliens, by aliens that were killing everyone, and we couldn't stop them. So that put a fear in. So then when the Roswell thing broke, what was that, 10 years later or whatever? Roswell was 47, something like that. When that broke, and then they decided to cover it up, that was their excuse. Well, we've already had an experience where the nation this subject matter was brought up to them and they freaked out. Well, they freaked out under the guise that we were being attacked.
Right.
Not that someone else has come here and opened themselves up to visitors / greetings / we want to share with you guys, or maybe we created you. And we're here to.
I think so. I think we have alien
that makes
DNA.
sense.
Yeah, I think I do.
But we do.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's one woman that's always on Coast to Coast. She goes on the shows, and she's actually an expert on the way they track us with the RDF, the little the little things they put in us to track.
Oh
RFD or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
And she is very religious, and she has said if she found out there was UFOs, her whole world she'd be like, because she's strict Catholic. So I think with religion sort of dissipating or not becoming so rigid, that's going to help out on that.
The other angle that I think of is that we've all lost someone we've loved and we fell apart. We've all had a life event change us and we fell apart. We've, heartbreak, breakups, love, all the things that we grow through in life, we survived them.
Yep.
And what happened? We changed as a person. We weren't attracted to that kind of person anymore, or we accepted death as life and so forth. Because you need the experiences to break down to break through.
So we need the first one.
So I think we would need, people would fall apart for a little bit, but then I think they'd evolve because that's the new reality.
I think so. I hope so. And it's funny because there's two schools of thought. Like I know quite a few people that have had positive alien abductions, and I know some that have had the negative. So I think to have all the stories out there would work.
Yeah.
And
but the same with the ghost stories, and the same with there's the bad entities, and then there's the friendly entities, and all those things. And I've seen both in my life of those experiences.
Do tell.
Yeah, so.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm going to keep everybody hanging. Hold on. We're going to do our commercial. We'll be right back. Hey, you guys, looking for a great book? Never Give In to Fear, Laughing All the Way Up from Rock Bottom is the National Indie Excellence Award winner. This critically acclaimed, funny and dramatic memoir describes an emerging stand-up comic's drug-fueled descent into the underworld, escape from human traffickers, homelessness, and ultimate redemption. I promise you guys, this is going to be a movie someday as one of the most inspiring stories I've ever heard. And after I read the book, I bought 20 copies and I sent it to my friends who then bought 20 copies and sent it to their friends. And if you have not yet karmically received your copy, go to martymac.com and order Never Give In to Fear. I cannot say enough things. You guys know. I don't read. I read this book. I picked it up. I could not put it down. Never Give In to Fear, Laughing All the Way Up from Rock Bottom at martymac.com. martymac.com. Okay, so you've seen both good and bad, and you've had a near-death experience. I remember that. All right, start. I'm not even going to interrupt.
Yeah. Well, the Comedy Store was a magical place as a young comedian. I was 20, 21 when I first got there. And my job, I was a doorman. So Blake Clark, who I adore, this gentleman, when he served in the armed forces, he had men in Vietnam, and he was in charge of them. He had a platoon. And he has stories of being chased by the Viet Cong up a mountain, and a helicopter come down to save them from this gang that's following them, shooting at them as they climbed up a mountain. And the helicopter starts to take off, and he says, "No, you got to get us or we're dead." The guy goes, I got to get out of here. They're right behind you. He goes, if you don't get us, I'm going to blow you out of the sky. And the guy came down and he got all his men on and they got out. So that's the kind of person he is.
Yeah.
So when he's training me, one night he's showing me how to shut the doors and lock the doors in the main room while the original room is still going on. It's still happening there. So the main room's done its show.
And for people that don't know, there's 3 rooms in there.
3 rooms in the
original, 2
The
downstairs,
main room is a huge room that used to be a part of Ciro's. And it's like a 500-seat room. It's like a Vegas room. It's very big and huge stage, huge backstage area that I helped build back in 80.
Wow.
So my first job there was helping build the green room back there and the mirrors and all that other stuff. And that's when I heard stories of some of the offs. They shot people and killed them back then when the mob owned it. They took them to those places and they found bones in the walls and all this other great stuff that you hear about. So Blake and I were closing the room one night, and out of nowhere, he goes, you know this place is haunted? I said, no. He goes, one night, and he tells me one of those stories where the goosebumps just, because it's a man's man telling me this story. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm a kid, and he's got so much life experience in his belt, and he chills me to the bone he's starting to lock the room, and this entity shows itself in the middle of the main room. And he said it was like a white ghost figure where he could kind of see it, but he couldn't. And he didn't know what it was, and it had its back to him, and it turned around and went, oh, and gave him the ugliest face with the biggest teeth and started after him. And he ran down that long hallway that joins the 2 rooms together, burst out of the door and ran into the street and wouldn't go back to lock the club up. Didn't know what to do.
Wow.
Because this thing followed it out and dissipated right out the middle of the street.
Wow.
And he's not a liar, and he's not that kind of guy who just would tell a story to scare a guy, you know.
He was on,
it chilled us.
If anybody look him up, because you'll recognize his voice mostly and see him on TV shows.
Oh, yeah. He's in a lot of Adam Sandler movies.
Yeah, he's not a lightweight.
No, not at all.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was the introduction to the fact that the store was haunted. And then Kinison and I were, buddies. We hang there every night. We were doormen. And Sam had a lot of experiences. He actually exorcised several people in life because he was a minister for 7 years, but his father was his whole life. So he was raised in church and had a lot of supernatural experiences growing up. And he had a ghost story that was scary too, where he ran away from home at 16. He was out on the streets for about 2 days walking somewhere and got on a dirt road out in the countryside somewhere.
Because he was from Texas?
He ran away from when his parents lived in Tulsa.
Okay.
And
which you could get lost at walking.
Yeah, well, he might have hitchhiked and got to somewhere else. He was on his way to Norfolk, Virginia, is where he ended up. But he's on a country road, the sun's going down, he's tired, he's beat up, and he sees one of those little small churches. Well, he's comfortable. He lived in a church for many years. So that's where he's comfortable. So he breaks into the church. It's one of those 15-pew churches, very small, just the front up there, and then 15 pews and a door. And it's the little white one, out in the dirt road.
Like in that TV show Preacher.
No parking lot, you park on the grass. Right. Exactly. So he lays in the front pew, and he puts his little bag underneath his head, and he goes to sleep. Now he's 16. And he hears the door, which is locked. He hears the handle on the door. So now the moon's coming through one of the windows. It's dark. And he gets up, and he ignores it. Okay, it was just my imagination as I was going to sleep. So he lays back down. Then he hears footsteps coming from the door that's closed. Tick, tick, tick. And he goes, hello? Hi, my name's Sam, and I broke in to sleep. I just broke in here to sleep. That's all. I just want to sleep. And the footsteps stop, and nothing. And he looks up, and he doesn't see a thing. So he's going, that's my imagination. He lays back down. Now the footsteps are just at his feet. 1, 2, 3 footsteps, and it grabs him by the ankle and lifts him in the air to where he's screaming and his arms are flailing. He can't even touch the ground. This thing's got him up that high, and he's screaming. and this thing drops him. Oh. He grabs his bag and he runs out and bursts through that door. And he said he ran till he thought his heart was going to explode. And it had him. And he woke up the next day underneath the tree and his ankle hurt. And he pulled his pants leg up and he had a 3-pronged bruise all the way around the middle of his calf muscle. And he had big calf muscles. This thing was huge, but it had 4 fingers. 3 grabbed him on one side, and threw him around. So, and whenever he told the story, he got his chills too. So it's one thing for someone to make up a story.
Did he have a theory on that as for why?
No, he never did. But I think it's because he's always been connected somehow with that kind of stuff, like open to it, because he'd seen it so much as a young kid. And then he ended up marrying over 100 couples. He's been to so many people's deaths.
Well, I believe too that you don't go just God's route. You're on it's the same road.
Right.
It's the same road.
I'm sorry.
Somebody look up. Is probably the performer for my show?
Yeah, the black guy.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. Don't worry, my podcast.
Did you greet him so that he knows what? Sydney. Sydney's here.
Oh, Sydney's here.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have you for the 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, we're getting ready for our show. Yeah.
But I do believe that he, especially once you've made a connection, if he's done exorcisms too, once you've made a connection to those sort of things, they don't really go away.
Well, this will lead to the ghost story that I'm going to tell you, because this is pretty interesting. But he and I got into a 2-year thing in LA as young doormen. We got into a 2-year thing where we decided to do mushrooms and go to the depths of ourselves and open up and find this freedom we were both searching for as young guys. Now, I was 21 or 22. Sam was 5 years older. So we did it one night. We didn't eat for 4 days. Then we did mushrooms. And then we did a 9-hour walk. And in that 9-hour walk, Sam knew exactly what he wanted to experience and told me before we did the walk. He goes, we're going to walk into the 7 heavens. We're going to do this. We're going to be this. We're going to see this. That's what he wanted to do. And never been there. He just knew about it. So that was our exploration. We ended up on the top of Lookout Mountain in LA that looks out over the Hollywood Bowl and all that stuff. And we laid down and he said, now we're going to leave our bodies. And we laid down and looked up at the stars. And the next thing I know, we were out there. We weren't a body. Our bodies were laying down. And that's where I ended up with a bit later saying, if they would have found us, they would have said these guys are dead because we weren't there. But we were having an out of body. And we saw everything change. We saw history. We saw LA go prehistoric, and we saw it go to the future.
Wow.
But when we got back, and we didn't talk about when we were seeing it, and when we were communicating through the mind. It was unspoken, but we heard each other. But when we got back, and the next day we were talking about this experience, I go, did you see the city change? Everything, yes, I did. We saw the same things, and we're able to talk about it from different points of view.
Confirmation.
Exactly. So that confirmation. So one night, we were dormant at the Comedy Store. We have all these experiences under our belt, and we're in the store, and they did the 10th anniversary of the Comedy Store. And Buddy Rich played drums that night, and Robin Williams and Richard Pryor performed, and we were the doormen in that room that night. So it was historic. We got to see such a phenomenal celebration of 10 years of the Comedy Store and all these great acts. After the show, we had to clean up. And all we could do was buzz about what we just seen that night. One day, this could be us. We could be performing on stage, and people show up to see us. And, you know, all those things that inspire you. And so there's about 5 of us in the room. And Sam, out of nowhere, goes, watch this. And he went up on stage, because we had seen some ghostly things at that time, in that main room especially, and heard a lot of stories. And Sam walked up on stage. There's no one working the lights. There's one single light from the light spot up in the main room. It goes straight down to the stage, just the one big spotlight. So Sam walks up. All the lights are on. There's no sound crew there. There's nobody in the light box because you have to go up a staircase, all this other stuff. And Sam looks at this in the room, and he just kind of says it to the room. He goes, I bet all the ghosts in this room enjoy tonight because it was about the 30s was what the pretense of the night was about.
So it would be there.
Yeah, a lot of sketches about the 30s and 40s. Yeah. He goes, I bet you really, because that show was monumentous for performers and young comics. So we know it had to affect you. With that, boom, the lights in the whole building go out.
Wow.
In the main room. And then the spotlight goes on Sam. Pop! On Sam. And we all went, whoa! Because we know there's no one there to do that. There is no way you can control anything from downstairs.
Wow.
It's all upstairs. And you can't turn off the room lights, the whole room lights from upstairs. So Sam goes, okay, and starts to walk off, and the light bent and followed him.
Whoa.
To the corner of the stage, and he goes, guys, let's get the fuck out of here. And as soon as he said that light went out, and all of us felt a cold rush come through our bodies. And here is a bunch of grown men, here's a bunch of grown men crawling, 5 of us crawled on the floor. It took us 5 minutes to get out of that room.
Wow.
And run down that same hallway that Blake ran down to go out the door and talk about it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was one of many stories that ended up happening to where the ghost started following Sam. As Sam was becoming popular, Blake Clark told me a scary story one day. He said he's closing the main room, and he heard in the other room, ladies and gentlemen, Sam Kinison. And right behind him, he heard he heard a voice go, he's on. He's on.
EVP, yeah. Scary shit. Well, you know what? I mean, I would guess that Sam was haunted anyways.
Yeah, well, I think he freed the room one night.
Oh, so he crossed everybody over?
He crossed them over one night, and this was like 2 years later. Some life experience had come into him, and he went on stage, and he said, you can go now. I have the power to tell you to move on.
Wow.
And it stopped for us. I didn't hear any more ghost stories there. But Sam felt because everyone's telling the ghosts are talking about you, the ghosts are, and we had a lot of other experiences that we're not getting to because of time.
Right.
But it was those things that I saw him control it. So I could understand why he maybe was able earlier in his life to help somebody out who felt that they were possessed and things like that.
Right.
Because he had that gift of knowing the right thing to say.
And I know you got to go. So last question real quick. So after Sam passed, you must have had an experience where you knew he was there.
Yes, I did. When he died, I was holding him, and he went through me. And I met someone a day later that came over to the house for the family, and one of them said, why don't you get a massage? This person's a massage therapist, because you've been through so much stress. Why don't you get a massage? And I was so tired, I needed to lay down anyway. And I laid down, and the guy that started to massage me stopped and went, you went with him, didn't you? And I said, what? He goes, you went with Sam when he went through you. You're not back yet. So it was really weird, because later on I found out Sam did some horrible things to me and in my life. I ended up finding out a lot of things that I didn't think he was capable of doing to me. I know he did it to other people, but he did do it to me too. And one of the things that I learned was letting those things go, because I was carrying anger for something I had no control over.
Right.
And I think in life we give our love, and that's all you can do. Mm-hmm. What people do to you has nothing to do with you.
Right.
So I think that lesson was from him, because I saw him do it to the spirits. They tortured him. He went into Satanism for a little while to figure out what it was, and that was a scary time as a friend to see a friend dig in, because he had been from the Bible side of it for so long. But whatever he learned, it taught him enough to free those ghosts, which I thought was helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that lesson taught me to let the spirit of the things he had done to me go to.
Wow. Carl, I adore you. Everyone, Vegas, every Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday.
Where else can they find you? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram?
Facebook is what I'm doing right now.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
My God, I can't wait to see you again. We're going to do more. Thank you, Carl. Who do tarot readers go for tarot readings? They go to Melissa Sonova at melissasonova.com. She gave me the best reading a couple of months ago that is still resonating and helping me out now. She is authentic and to the point. You loved her on the podcast. She is the no BS tarot reader. She also has a tarot class online right now. Check it out. Just watching the promo, you will see how much fun you are going to have while you learn. Also, check out her book, which is always right beside me when I'm doing my readings or my tarot card for me in the morning. It is called Kitchen Table Tarot, and you will love it. Melissa Sonova, that's MELISSACYNOVA. Check her out. right. So I'm here with Stephen Pearl. And Stephen, tell everybody before we even get started where they can find you. Instagram, Facebook. Do you do any of those?
I'm on Facebook. I have a late grade podcast show that's still up there called Rifferendum, RIFFERENDUM.com, with interviews with Robin Williams and Johnny Winter and Edgar Winter, musicians, and Tom Dreesen.
Oh, that's
and
great.
all kinds of Felicia Michaels carries all kinds of great, mostly comedians, two musicians, Johnny and Edgar Winter.
Oh, that's excellent. So, and now I'm talking to you, and I'm going to interview Carl Labove.
He's right over there.
We're doing all. He is. He's right here.
Can't see me.
He's right there.
And we are actually at the Laugh Factory.
Yes, we are.
You guys are doing the late night show after
In Vegas by the sea, baby.
Vegas by the sea. So we're talking Ghosts of the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
And I don't know Joey Gaynor, or I haven't seen him in a long time. He has the best stories.
He has lots of them, yeah.
That where he was.
I'll give you his number if you want. Or something.
Yes, he was in the main room.
He'll be happy somebody's calling him. So.
Yeah.
Might be a gig. Yeah.
He was in the main room and he got up and he turned around and all the chairs were up on the table.
Like on a big pyramid there, like in a mirror. He'll have to tell you that it's his story.
Oh,
so yeah.
God. All right. So what do you have a ghost?
Well, I was there in the main room once with Joey, and there was no show going on. It was like they had the main room going on. The original room going on. We were just hanging out talking, and they have candles on all the tables, and a candle and a table next to us lit itself, just lit.
Oh.
And I go, "Did you see that?" He said, "Yeah, I saw that. Did that candle light itself?" I think it did. Let's get out of here! Cut out so much of the wall like the little rascals. School, gotta get out of here.
Well, that whole place though is Vitello's is what it used to be.
It used to be Ciro's, yeah, Ciro's.
Vitello's is still open.
I think that's where Robert Blake took his wife on their last date.
Right.
Gosh damn, why'd she have it happen, man? What happened? I didn't do it, man.
All right, and I'm going to ask Carl about this too. But it used to be Ciro's.
It used to be Ciro's,
and they used to, when you go up in the belly room, right? There's a little window where you can look where they used to shoot people, right?
I've heard
like that.
I've heard that in the office they used to perform abortions there occasionally, and people have heard like a baby crying up there.
While the show was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And but I was on stage in the main room one night, and it was shortly after Sam Kinison died. And I mentioned Sam from stage, and all the lights went out. Everything in the main room went out, and everything was going on. I think the club ran on one generator, but everything in the other rooms were going fine. And I thought maybe the light guy was messing with it, but he was standing in the doorway. He wasn't up in the balcony where the light thing was. And the lights came back on. I go, "Sam, is that you?" And the lights went off again, and then they came back on again. Oh yeah, I don't know what it was, but that's what happened. So
well, he had that sort of charisma and energy in life, which means it went with him.
Well, I've heard the ghosts are going like, "Oh, we can't be seen by the industry here. We're going to the Improv." Ooh. And Bud's going, "Clear the aisle, spirits. Remember, Sunday night is open mic for goblins and ghouls." Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And so any other? Well, that sounds good.
That's
enough.
about for me, yeah. But this
lighting.
man over here has seen some stuff.
Yeah, Carl has. All right. Well, thanks, Stephen.
Well, thanks for having me. My cameo. And don't forget my podcast show, Rifferendum, RIFFERENDUM.com. Interviews with Robin Williams and Tom Dreesen and all kinds of fun people. Oh boy!
I'm going to need you to say that faster.
Okay.
And now I'm talking to Tom McTigue. We were working here in Vegas. We're working at the MGM. You said you have a great...
It's really not work, is it, Karen?
I know it's not, but it's... Well, I was doing tarot reading, though, so I was working, but the shows were fun.
Oh, that's right, yeah. During the day, you were doing your thing.
And I have a hot flash, so you're going to...
Right now you have a hot flash?
Yes, my sweater will be on and off the whole time.
Is that causal? I mean, is this impending stories I'm telling you? Is that something that's causing it?
It is. It's a old lady, and that's how I react to everything.
How convenient in our chilly weather that you're getting hot flashes.
I know.
I wish I could have a hot flash.
You'll see steam rise up for me as we go outside because it snowed yesterday in Vegas.
No, I know it did. And then we went out last night after the show.
Oh, you
came back because you were tired.
Yeah.
We went out last night for sushi, and I walked from my room down to the showroom. I didn't have a coat on. I don't even need a coat. I'm inside. And then we all went out for sushi, and I was so cold. Just walking from the showroom to the car, and then from the car into the sushi, and then back again. I was so cold. Rob Sherwood gave me his coat. I was Rob Sherwood's little bitch. He draped his coat on my shoulders, and he was such a gentleman.
Just a romantic.
I'm sorry he's married. It's kind of a shame.
Yes, I have the full snorkel coat, and it's just been crazy.
Yeah.
Because I take the dog out every couple hours so he can pee because he's on heart pills. So he pees. I have hot flashes. We're great.
Have you checked his prostate? Because he could be having, at his age, he's probably got some prostate issues.
He does. That's the boot scooting, I think, that happens. Tell me your ghost story. Because you believe in ghosts? I thought you said you did.
I don't really believe in ghosts, but I have. I've had two experiences that come to mind
that can't be explained.
that are very odd. One, I'm trying to figure chronologically. So this first one was shortly. Well, I don't know, shortly. I was in my early comedy career. Okay, so this would chronologically have happened after the first one. And
so this is the second one first?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because the second one is the better one.
Okay. Lead with open strong.
In terms of ghosts, right? Okay. So this doesn't have really anything to do with ghosts, but it to me it's
paranormal.
Feels very paranormal. So I was in a hotel room on the road, working some random city, and I couldn't tell you where, but I would assume it would. I don't know where it was. Let's say Iowa.
Iowa's good.
Because I don't remember ever working in Iowa. Asleep. I was in my hotel room asleep, as far as I knew. And I woke up and my entire field of vision was red. The entire field of vision.
You mean a red filter or all you saw was red?
All I saw was red. Right?
Interesting.
And when you're laying in bed and I was like, what is that? What is that? And focused on it, trying to figure out what that was. And slowly the field of vision narrowed, almost like tunnel vision, the red, right? Got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as I focused on it. And
when you say tunnel, so it's black around and it's
black around. It's just red. So it went from red everywhere in my vision to receding into black, red. And as I focused on it, it receded further and further and further, and it eventually resolved itself into the small red warning light on the smoke detector all the way across the room.
Okay.
And as I recognized that, I also recognized that in my hand was a lit cigarette that I had fallen asleep with.
Oh.
In bed. And that to me was like very odd. I mean, it was like an out-of-body almost like an out-of-body experience where, I was right next to the smoke detector so that all that I saw was that red warning light. It wasn't flashing. It was just a constant red light. It hadn't made any noise or anything. And then as I returned into my body, it resolved itself into what it was, which was a red warning light on a smoke detector, which made me then recognize the fact that I had a cigarette burning in my hands as I was asleep in bed.
See, I do think that you were out of your body.
Okay.
I think that's an out-of-body experience, and you kind of saved yourself. Or somebody might have been going, hey!
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good ghost story.
Being cared for.
Yeah.
Cared for. Yeah. And the other, okay, so that's the first
That's
one.
good. We've never had a story like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you can look at that thing and go, yeah, well, maybe you just were, whatever, and rationalize it away. And the way I choose to look at it is being cared for.
Yes, your higher self or your higher beings.
Yeah, and I find... I find great solace in that, in my entire walk, right? So the second one was very creepy. I was working on a movie. It was an NYU student film when I was still living in New York. So this is long before I ever started my comedy career. I was working, I was a student living in New York, studying at HB and trying to...
What's HB?
Herbert Burghoff Studios. It's an acting school in New York. Okay. And I wanted to... I wanted to become an actor. So I was studying, and I got a gig doing a student film that was being shot on Long Island. And it never saw the light of day. But the director of it actually, I think, is still working as a director today. His name is Rex Piano. And
Rex Piano?
Rex Piano, like play the piano.
Oh, Rex Piano was his last name?
Piano was his last name. Oh. And his father was a big executive in an early cable network. I don't know why I'm remembering all of this. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it was called the Mislu Television Network. And at that time, I don't think the network survived, and I don't know that his father's fortune survived, but at that time, they lived in a very large house, a very nice house on Long Island with a pool shaped like and painted like a piano. We were filming this on various locations on Long Island, and then the cast and crew would stay in his house. And so I am sleeping in a very large room with two or three of the other actors. So it was, there was a bed here and a bed there and a bed the other place. And my bed, the headboard of my bed was up against the wall, and then to the right of my bed was the door, the entrance and exit to the room, right here, right? Okay. So, and the door opened away from me, into the room away from me. And on the other side of that wall was a large staircase that went down to the rest of the house. It was a pretty narrow staircase. And this isn't like an old house, not like, you'd think an old haunted house or whatever. And so we were all turned in for the night. It was late. I think everybody was asleep, including me. And I woke up to some sibilant sounds, it's this, and I'm
whispering,
like, yeah. But it wasn't, I guess it was whispering, but it was happening on the other side of the wall, so behind my head on the stairway, right? And it sounded like people were on the stairway whispering, right? And the film was it was sort of a horror film, comedy film, boy meets girl film.
Didn't know what it was doing.
But a pretty large cast. There was probably 10 or 12 of us in the house at the time. And so hearing these sounds, you're in bed and everybody's asleep. I'm not alone. I don't feel scared at all. And I thought, it really just sounded like whispering, like somebody was on the stairs.
Didn't
and they were
sound
getting
nefarious.
ready to. No, I thought somebody was going to prank us or whatever. Maybe somebody was standing on the stairs and they were trying to get their
shock moment.
Yeah, trying to figure out how they were really going to pull this thing off, right? But it was just all of this.
That's very creepy.
It was really. It was, yeah. Go ahead. It was.
No,
creepy.
that's what EVPs and sort of sometimes disembodied voices. It's not. It's a little creepier than even if you heard a voice. Uh-huh. So, but in the way you're doing it is perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's what it sounded like. It was just this. You couldn't understand it, but you could hear it, right? And mostly the sibilant sounds. So I listened to it. I don't know, for maybe a minute. And then I thought, I'm gonna surprise those people. Whoever is back there, I'm gonna catch them, And so I very quietly got out of bed and opened the door. And as I said, the door opened away from me. So I was able to, and what I was gonna do was quickly look down the stairway and catch them. Right down that stairway. I was going to catch him. And so I opened the door, and I could still, you open the door, and then So I was pretty sure of what I was up to. And so I opened the door and I put my head close to the entrance of the door, and I was getting ready to turn my head, to the right to look down this stairway to go, ha ha. And as I got my head out of the door, right in my ear and as clear as a bell, I heard, "Sleep tight, tonight's the night." And I was just fucking freaked. I mean, I was so close to pissing myself I possibly did. I mean, it scared me so fucking badly.
Sleep tight?
Sleep tight, tonight's the night.
Oh, tonight's the night. Oh.
That's what it said. Yeah. And I blew back into that bedroom. I was so unbelievably frightened. And I ran across the room, and all the other guys, the 2 or 3 other guys in the room, were sound asleep. And I was like, "Oh my God, something's out there. Something's fucking, wake the fuck up. Be with me."
And you didn't get to look? Did you get to look and see nothing?
Oh God, no. Just as I got my ear around the door jamb, right in my ear. I mean, as close as somebody would be to bite your ear. They were right in my ear going, "Sleep tight, tonight's the night." And the movie that we were doing wasn't terribly frightening. It wasn't like, I was constantly thinking of creepy shit, and
that sounds like something that was in the house. And I don't know that it's an old house, or it could be haunting someone there. It could be fun, but
I don't know what it was, but I woke the other guys up. And everybody, they were like, "Hey, what, dude? Fuck, I didn't hear anything. What are you talking about? Nothing's going on." And I think, but they recognized in me my
true
abject
fear.
Panic. Yeah, I mean, I was panicked, and so I wound up sleeping across the room, sitting up, right next to one of the other guys, like. Fucking,
I'm ready to,
safety in numbers.
Yeah.
But I mean, we turned on the lights and looked down the hallway, and the house was dead silent. There wasn't anybody else awake. Nobody retreated back down the steps. Nothing. And and that was that. And I have absolutely no explanation for it. We talked to the other actors and crew the next day, and everybody was like, "Oh, that sounds really creepy." No, fuck, we were asleep, man. We didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
And if you're going to prank somebody,
you got to get the laugh at the end.
Well, there's no sense in that in terms of a prank. A, they didn't know I was coming out because it was all dark, And B, there was no resolution to it. But to this day, I have
no idea.
No explanation for it, but felt extraordinarily threatened.
See, and I think malevolent spirits do that. Like the one that I played you that says "kill her." I don't even know if they have the power to do that, but I think the idea of frightening you, of putting. Because I know you're kind of half on the fence, but I think negative things feed off our negativity. So if we are afraid, they love that. That gives them energy. So they would do that just to mess with your brain. Like, oh, this one's up.
Well, that makes them kind of assholes. Why are they assholes?
I don't know.
What is it in assuming now? Are we assuming that these are previously incarnate?
I wouldn't assume anything about that. I would find, because that could just be, there's usually human spirits are not very powerful, but they can, if they're that angry, they can have enough to verbally give you that information. If they're really like, "I hate this, and why is this guy in my house, and I'm going to scare him." If it's something more, I think there's a process here that we can't even conceive of. And I remember talking to, another comic, and we were talking about demons, and there was some sort of story about a demon in a house. I don't know what we were talking about, whether it was even true or not. Mm-hmm. But he said, I would just try and make friends with that. And my friend that's a real demonologist that really deals with horrible, horrible people being thrown around the house. They can't see what's going on. Uh-huh. He's like, this is just something that is completely evil. You cannot appeal to its better side. It is ancient. It's so much smarter than you. When he has to deal with something like that, he's like, I just hope to stay on the level I can. Because it's like dealing with someone that's already knows everything about you. You don't know. And there's I don't think we can conceive of something that is just evil to do evil, but that's what it is.
Mm. Yeah, well, whatever it was, it made me really uncomfortable. But on the flip side, and I know I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, and I don't know what that was, and whether it's a ghost or whether it was.
It didn't show you an ID of when it passed.
It didn't go, here's my bona fides,
Here's my ghost identity.
So, yeah, my ghost card. That's fucking totally legit. But on the flip side of that, I have been on the receiving end of such mercy and grace and kindness that, it because it presents itself as human kindness or coincidental grace or mercy, I don't ascribe necessarily any supernatural origin to it. But assuming that there is balance in the universe.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
If there is goodness and grace and mercy and kindness and love, there's got to be the flip side. And if that goodness is floating around in the ambient, then there probably is the bad floating around in the ambient. And so I don't know if people have any, supernatural stories of, going back to the first story that I told, it seems like that was benevolence, and it certainly manifested itself in a very different way. But that's manifest benevolence that kept me from burning to death in a bed in a random town as a young comedian. And the second one was an example of,
I completely believe that. And we're taping this on the day that everyone would have heard the Jessa Reed episode about transurfing, where there's sort of these 12 steps of the universe. Just before you came in, I was listening to the part about balance, that the universe, you know what I mean? That there is balance. And sometimes... I know this is a weird analogy, but sometimes people that are very involved in the Catholic Church, very spiritual, very praying all the time, will also attract that other side. You know what I mean? Like people that are pretty middle of the road don't usually end up with a lot of nefarious stuff. And it can just be the pendulums. Like you open a door to one, you open a door to both. It doesn't mean, but you can be stronger. I guess I'm kind of going all over here, but exactly what you said about balance. The universe has balance. And also, I do believe not only in grace and angels and good things happening to you, but I also believe sometimes we don't even know that it's that. I believe that a human could walk up to you and literally stop your car and go, hey, you got to watch out. There's black ice on the road up there. You better slow down. Oh, thank you, man. And then you slow down and you go, wow, I almost got killed there. If you looked in your rear view mirror, there might be no one there. Like, I think that there's that good in the earth also. Sure. It's sort of, it wasn't your time and somebody was like, hey, get up. Maybe it's time to quit smoking or whatever it was. Right. But I actually have a funny student film story that that isn't a ghost story. Oh, good. But I remember when I was in the San Francisco comedy competition, and it was very. I was kind of new to comedy, and it was really stressful. And you're all wrapped up in ego, and I want to do good, and I should have done better, and it's like this giant neurotic mess. Right. And so I returned to my hotel room once after having like the worst set. Like there's 30 comics on, and I just, whatever it was, I was so angry, and I was holding my head in my hands, and I turned around and on, I think it was HBO or some channel, there's a film comes on called The Refrigerator. And I love horror films. And I turned and watched this film, and I cannot turn away. It is not formula. It is not making any sense. It is hysterical in some campy ways, and it's about someone that has a refrigerator that's possessed. And it is almost life-changing in that moment that it took me so far out of this thing. I became obsessed with this film. I was like, I don't know if it made me laugh or whatever, but it was just, I was in such admiration that there was no formula. This was a possessed refrigerator. They had to chain it in 1 minute. It was just insane. So I told my friend about this film, and because we used to watch movies together, and we finally found it on some really long, obscure, this was before the internet was even big, a book. It was a student film. So my friend Eric that I watch films with, this is, I think, 20 years later, he wants to volunteer at the AFI. And he's interviewing from this producer, this guy or something like that, about for this volunteer job. And he looks up, and there on the shelf is the film, The Refrigerator. And he goes, "Did you make that film?" And the guy was like, "Well, that was my first student film." And my friend Eric goes, "My friend talked about that film and how great it was for years." And he probably lost the job because the guy was like, "That's the worst film I've ever made." And this guy's trying to bullshit me that he has a friend that loved that film. The guy just looked at him like, "Are you nuts?" But it was just, that was my only student film story. Well, thank you, Tom. And tell everyone where they can find you on Facebook or Instagram. Where can everybody find you and your hysterical comedy also?
I'm supposed to plug myself. Hi.
Yes.
I know I am like the world's worst salesman. I am not a good. Okay, so if you want to find me, I'm on Facebook, Tom McTigue. There's 2 pages, my personal and my professional. You can join one or friend the other. And on Twitter at Tom McTigue, and Instagram at, I think that's at Tom McTigue. I'm not a big social media guy, but if you want to be in touch, by all means, look me up. I'm there.
Yeah, and he'll post his dates, and he's hysterically funny. You have to see him. And also, everyone, sleep tight. Tonight's the night.